Betrayal is a tale as old as time. Friends, allies, and even family members have turned against one another, leaving destruction in their wake. Some of these betrayals changed entire nations, while others led to the downfall of once mighty empires. Join us as we count down the top 10 true stories behind history's greatest betrayals. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more incredible videos. Number 10. The Fall of Constantinople, 1453. The open gate that doomed an empire. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 was one of history's most dramatic betrayals, though the exact circumstances remain a mystery. As the mighty Ottoman army, led by Sultan Mehmed II, laid siege to the Byzantine capital, the city's formidable walls kept them at bay for weeks. However, a crucial mistake, or an act of treachery, sealed Constantinople's fate. A small gate, known as the Kirkoporta, was left open, allowing Ottoman troops to pour in and overrun the defenders. Whether it was an accident or sabotage, this single opening led to the collapse of the once great Byzantine Empire. Once inside, Ottoman forces quickly overwhelmed the exhausted defenders, leading to a brutal sack of the city. Emperor Constantine XI fought to the last breath but was ultimately killed in the chaos. The city that had stood as a beacon of Christian power for over 1,000 years fell in a matter of hours. The open gate remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Was it negligence, a desperate act, or an inside betrayal? Regardless, it marked the end of the Byzantine era and the rise of the Ottoman Empire as a dominant world power. Number 9. The assassination of Julius Caesar, 44 BCE, et tu, Brute. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BCE is one of the most infamous betrayals in history, forever tied to the haunting phrase, et tu, Brute. Quote. As Caesar rose to power, many Roman senators feared he was becoming a dictator who would end the republic. A conspiracy formed, led by his close friend Brutus and Cassius, to end his rule. On the Ides of March, Caesar entered the Senate, unaware of the deadly plot against him. The moment he took his seat, the assassins struck, stabbing him 23 times in a brutal attack. Despite fighting back at first, Caesar reportedly froze when he saw Brutus among his attackers. His last words, et tu, Brute, whether real or a later addition by Shakespeare, became the ultimate expression of betrayal. The murder, however, did not save the Republic. Instead, it plunged Rome into a civil war, leading to the rise of Caesar's heir, Augustus, and the birth of the Roman Empire. The betrayal that was meant to preserve Rome ultimately reshaped history, making Caesar's name immortal. Number 8. The treachery of Benedict Arnold, 1780, the American traitor. Benedict Arnold was once a celebrated hero of the American Revolution, known for his bravery in battle. However, despite his military success, he felt unappreciated by the Continental Congress, which repeatedly overlooked him for promotions and questioned his loyalty. Resentful and deep in debt, Arnold made a fateful decision. He plotted to surrender the American fort at West Point to the British in exchange for money and a high-ranking position. His plan nearly succeeded, but when his British contact, Major John Andre, was captured with incriminating documents, Arnold's betrayal was exposed. Arnold narrowly escaped to British-held territory, while Andre was executed as a spy. The name Benedict Arnold became synonymous with treason in American history. Though he served in the British Army, he never earned their full trust and lived the rest of his life in disgrace. His story remains one of the most infamous betrayals in history, a patriot turned traitor, whose ambition and resentment cost him his legacy. Number 7. The Night of the Long Knives, 1934, Hitler's ruthless purge. The Night of the Long Knives in 1934 was Adolf Hitler's brutal betrayal of his own allies to consolidate power. The Nazi regime had relied on the SA, Sturmabteilung, or brownshirts, led by Ernst Röhm, to enforce its rise. However, Röhm's growing influence and radical vision for Germany made him a threat to Hitler. Fearing Röhm's ambition and needing the support of the German military, Hitler ordered a violent purge, eliminating Röhm and other political rivals in a swift, bloody massacre. Over the course of several days, hundreds of SA leaders, political enemies, and even former allies were executed. This betrayal solidified Hitler's absolute control over Germany, winning the favor of the military and proving that no one was safe from his wrath. The event became a chilling reminder of Hitler's willingness to turn on his own people to maintain power, setting the stage for the dictatorship that would lead the world into war. Number 6. The capture of Joan of Arc, 1430, sold to her enemies. Joan of Arc, the young French warrior and visionary, was betrayed in 1430 when she was captured by the Burgundians, a faction allied with England during the 100 Years' War. After leading French forces to several victories and helping to turn the tide of war, Joan found herself outnumbered and trapped at Compiègne. Instead of rallying to her defense, the Burgundians saw an opportunity and sold her to the English for 10,000 livres, effectively handing over France's most inspiring leader to her enemies. Once in English custody, Joan was put on trial for heresy and witchcraft, a politically motivated attack designed to destroy her credibility and erase her influence. Abandoned by the very king she had helped crown, Charles VII made no serious effort to negotiate her release, leaving her to face a sham trial and a tragic fate. Burned at the stake in 1431, Joan's betrayal became one of history's most infamous acts of political self-preservation, yet her legend only grew stronger, making her a national martyr and later a saint. Number 5. The Dreyfus Affair, 1894, a soldier framed. The Dreyfus Affair was one of the most infamous cases of betrayal in modern history, exposing deep-rooted anti-Semitism and corruption within the French military. In 1894, Captain Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish officer in the French army, was falsely accused of spying for Germany. Based on flimsy evidence and widespread prejudice, he was convicted of treason and sentenced to life imprisonment on Devil's Island, a brutal penal colony. The real spy, Major Ferdinand Walsin Esterhazy, remained free while the French military covered up its mistakes to protect its reputation. For years, Dreyfus suffered in isolation, while his supporters, most famously writer Émile Zola, who published his fiery open letter J'accuse, fought to expose the truth. In 1899, Dreyfus was retried and found guilty again, despite overwhelming evidence of his innocence. Public outrage forced the government to pardon him, but it wasn't until 1906 that Dreyfus was fully exonerated and reinstated in the army. The affair revealed the dangers of nationalism, prejudice, and corruption, leaving a lasting scar on French society. Number 4. The Great Betrayal of Richard III, 1485, abandoned in battle. The Great Betrayal of Richard III unfolded at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, marking the dramatic end of the Wars of the Roses. As the last Plantagenet king of England, Richard III faced Henry Tudor's rebel army in a decisive battle for the throne. Initially, Richard's forces outnumbered the Tudors, but his fate took a dark turn when key allies, including Lord Stanley, refused to engage in battle. Stanley, who had secretly aligned with Henry Tudor, watched from the sidelines before ultimately turning against Richard. This betrayal shattered Richard's confidence and left him dangerously exposed. Realizing he had been abandoned, Richard III led a desperate charge into enemy lines, determined to kill Henry Tudor himself. His bravery was legendary. He reportedly fought fiercely, refusing to flee. However, with his army crumbling and allies deserting him, Richard was surrounded and killed on the battlefield. His death marked the end of the Plantagenet dynasty and the rise of the Tudors. Henry Tudor was crowned Henry VII, beginning a new era for England. Richard's betrayal remains one of the most famous in British history, cementing his reputation as a tragic and controversial figure. Number 3. The death of Grigory Rasputin, 1916, betrayed by Russian nobles. The death of Grigory Rasputin in 1916 is one of history's most infamous betrayals. A mystic and trusted advisor to Tsarina Alexandra, Rasputin held immense influence over the Russian royal family, particularly due to his ability to ease the suffering of the Tsar's hemophiliac son, Alexei. However, his growing power alarmed Russian nobles, who saw him as a threat to the empire. A group of conspirators, led by Prince Felix Yusupov and Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, lured Rasputin to Yusupov's palace under the pretense of a private gathering. They offered him cyanide-laced cakes and poisoned wine, expecting him to die quickly, but to their horror, Rasputin showed no signs of illness. Panicking, Yusupov shot Rasputin in the chest, seemingly killing him. But when the conspirators returned to dispose of his body, Rasputin suddenly revived and tried to escape. In a frenzy, they shot him multiple times, beat him, and finally threw him into the freezing Neva River. An autopsy later suggested Rasputin may have still been alive when he hit the water, ultimately drowning. His assassination was meant to restore confidence in the Russian monarchy, but it only deepened public distrust. Just months later, the Russian Revolution erupted, leading to the downfall of the Romanovs. Rasputin's eerie resilience and betrayal by those he thought were allies cemented his place in history as one of its most mysterious figures. Number 2. The Sack of Rome, 1527. The Swiss Guards' last stand. The sack of Rome in 1527 was one of the most brutal betrayals in history, marking the downfall of the Renaissance papacy's power. The Holy Roman Emperor Charles V's largely unpaid and mutinous troops, many of them Lutheran German mercenaries, landsknechts, marched on Rome, defying the Pope's authority. Despite being nominally Catholic, Charles V allowed his soldiers to unleash chaos upon the Eternal City, pillaging its treasures, murdering its citizens, and desecrating churches. Pope Clement VII, realizing the imminent threat, took refuge in Castel Sant'Angelo, but his fate would have been sealed were it not for the heroic sacrifice of the Swiss Guard. On May 6, 1527, the Swiss Guard, fiercely loyal to the Pope, made a last stand at St. Peter's Basilica, buying precious time for Clement VII to escape through a secret passage known as the Passetto di Borgo. Outnumbered and overwhelmed, 147 Swiss guards perished defending the Vatican, their blood staining the steps of St. Peter's. Despite their valor, Rome fell to an orgy of destruction that lasted months, marking a dark chapter in papal history. The sack not only devastated the city but also shattered the Pope's political influence, forcing him into submission to the Holy Roman Empire. Today, the Swiss Guard remains the Vatican's elite force, and every year on May 6, new recruits swear their oath of loyalty in memory of their fallen predecessors. Number 1. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, 1939, the ultimate political backstab. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact of 1939 was one of the most shocking betrayals in modern history, as it saw two ideological enemies, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, agree to a secret non-aggression treaty. Signed by Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov and German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop, the pact included a hidden protocol that divided Eastern Europe between the two powers. This agreement paved the way for Hitler's invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, with the Soviets attacking from the east just 16 days later. The world was stunned. Germany and the Soviet Union had publicly denounced each other for years, but now they were working together to carve up Europe. However, the ultimate betrayal came in 1941, when Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion in history, breaking the pact and attacking the Soviet Union. Stalin, despite receiving warnings, was caught off guard and suffered catastrophic losses as German forces stormed deep into Soviet territory. The agreement that had once been seen as a strategic victory for the USSR turned into a nightmare, with millions of Soviet soldiers and civilians paying the price. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact remains a symbol of realpolitik at its most ruthless, where short-term gain led to long-term disaster. And there you have it. The top 10 true stories behind history's greatest betrayals. Some of these changed the world, others ended lives, but all of them remind us that trust can be shattered in an instant. Which betrayal shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a history-packed video from Robot Ray.